put it into words. Imagine your worst nightmare come true. It probably doesn't even come close to it. The earliest memory would be when I was probably about 2.5, 3 years old. Beatings, physical and sexual abuse, mental abuse, from both a mother and father, where a mother would she'd keep us away from play school, my other two brothers from school, and use us for her sexual perversions, whilst our father was at work. When I was 3, I remember I was put into a children's home.
But Chris's abuse was not to end there. On the weekly visits they were allowed to the home, his parents continued the abuse.
The supervision order, it wasn't enforced. We'd be taken into a playroom, and our father would he'd ram a chair up against the door, and the abuse would carry on. Yeah, on the property at the children's home.
What sort of abuses happened in the home?
At this point in time, our mother had lost a set of twins. Can I stop for a minute, please?
Chris was told he was to blame for the twins' deaths. His feelings of guilt helped ensure he'd submit to yet more abuse.
There were many forms of abuse, physically, mentally and sexually. On a mixture of mentally and sexually, they would bring pornographic magazines into the children's home, where we'd be made to sit and look at the magazines, whilst performing sexual acts with our mother and our father joining in as well.
Approximately 1 in every 100 girls in the population and 1 in every 100 boys in the population are sexually abused in their childhood by a woman. And that's a vast number of victims that we are avoiding if we're not looking at the issue of women as sexual abusers.
After they've escaped. When they do, much of their testimony shatters the myth that women only sexually abuse if coerced by men. Lucy Jenner had a single mother. Lucy took the place of her husband in the bed she had to share every night.
She would lock the door, and after a certain time she would snap on the light, and sometimes I tried to pretend to be asleep so it wouldn't happen, but it didn't make any difference. My mother would be behind me, and I would be facing the wall, and my mother would be sort of around me, and she called this a chair, and she would say that she loved me and various other things, and she would penetrate me vaginally and rectally with whatever she had.
There was lasting damage, causing pain and bleeding even today, a legacy of the abuse she'd endured.
I think mainly it is the abuse that has affected my bowel. I have a rectal prolapse, which is a direct result of being penetrated with objects or whatever when I was a child. I was sexually abused by my mother.
The biggest trauma for some victims, though, is disbelief. A survey of 127 survivors by the children's charity Kidscape showed 86% were not believed at first when they named a woman as their abuser.
The fact that we are not expecting women in our society to do this, and not accepting that women in our society do this, actually has profound effects on the victim, in often making the experience go on much longer than it would have done so in other cases, but also make them feel more stigmatised, more different, more betrayed and more powerless.
For 20 years, no one saw what Sandra and Leslie endured. Their mother started to abuse them aged 5 and 6 and continued even after they were married. When they threatened to go to the police, she threatened to abuse their children. Sandra and Leslie's mother was accompanied by their father in the abuse, but it was she who took the lead.
Mother used to always come into the bedroom and drag us out of the bedroom. She never had any clothes on, so you knew what was going to happen. I was made to do things, and I was frightened. I was crying. I was told to shut up, and I always had to get used to it.
You know, when my mum was being really nice, you knew something was you're going to get raped. It felt like it was every night, 45 times a week, they both raped me.
Who started these sessions? Who was the dominant partner?
My mother. My mother always came to get me.
And Dad was at work. I was cleaning the bath out and everything, and all of a sudden my mum came in the bathroom, and she pushed me flying, and she grabbed my hair, and she dragged me into the bedroom, and she made me do things, you know, for her satisfaction.
I couldn't understand, you know, your own mother. You got no one else to turn to. I mean, if it's your dad doing it, at least you've got some chance. You've got your mother, you know, try and talk to her if she's a good mother. But when you got your mother doing it as well, what chance have you got? No one's going to believe you. There's no escape.
Sandra and Leslie's father, John Wildman, was eventually sent to prison for 22 years. Maureen Wildman died shortly after being charged. It's her abuse the girls say hurt them most.
Those survivors who tell me they have been sexually abused by both a woman and a man always tell me that it was more traumatic to be sexually abused by a woman. They feel more betrayed. They feel very angry. They feel the woman should have cared for them, should have loved them, instead of abusing them. For some reason, they expected it almost of the man, but never of the woman.
The violence that often accompanies the abuse is also unexpected of a woman. Victims often report excessive force, equivalent to, if not greater than that of a man. This was the experience in a Newcastle taxi a year ago of a 15-year-old girl. Her 33-year-old aunt held her down and forced her to submit to oral sex by the driver as payment in kind. Angered by that and other sexual attacks by her aunt Paula Belisle, the victim has decided to speak out publicly about the abuse.
I was sitting watching the telly, and then I thought I was going to the toilet, and she went in the passage. She come back in and she had this chair leg because it was on top of the electric cupboard. And then she just come over on the settee, and I put her hand over my mouth and pulled me like pants down. Had her legs over my legs, and like she's got like big fat legs, you know what? I just come over on the settee, and I put her hand over my mouth and pulled me like pants down. Had her legs over my legs, and like she's got like big fat legs, you know what I mean? And they were really, really tight on my legs, and I couldn't move. Like she had a hand on my shoulder and a hand on my mouth and everything, just one hand though. And she was shoving the chair leg up us, and really, really, really hard. And I couldn't hardly scream because she had a hand over my mouth. It was very painful, honestly. I felt like I was having a burn. And I was just crying because I was really upset. I didn't want my own auntie to do it to us. I thought men were animals, but women are just as bad. I mean, especially my own auntie doing that. I hate her. If I had the chance, I'd kill her. I can't stand her.